We've got the latest Rams injury updates, and we're throwing out grades for every single Rams position group after their Week 1 loss to the Lions. How concerned should we be? That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
You are Locked On Rams, your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Ramley, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Rams, your daily podcast covering your Los Angeles Rams. Free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Locked On Rams, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're also available over on YouTube, so if you haven't yet, do us a huge favor and hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, hit that like button, and also let us know. Give us your grades for each position for the Rams' Week 1 loss against the Lions. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMac_LA. I've been covering LA sports, the NFL, college football over a decade, 24/7 sports, Bleacher Report, SI, Dodgers Nation. Now the Rams 4 Locked On. And as always, I'm joined by the Rams pre, half, and post-game show host for the Rams flagship radio station, ESPN 710 LA. He just started his 9th season covering your Los Angeles Rams, the People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers. You can follow him on X at Travis Rogers. And on today's show, we're talking Rams injuries, got some updates. Also, we're going position by position, grading every single Rams position group for their Week 1 loss against the Lions, throwing out some winners and losers. But first, today's episode of Locked On Rams is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, Travis, so yesterday's show, we did a ton of injury updates because there was a ton to get into. Talked Puka. We talked all the offensive line injuries and the new signings as well. They added some depth to the offensive line. But we're going to go and start with our grades. And we're going to start with the offensive line because they were just flat out atrocious for the most part. You had A.J. Curry getting active on game day, and he was definitely manhandled throughout this one. It had Aiden Hutchinson had a 47.8 pass rush win rate. That was tops in the NFL. I think Bo Limmer, someone who I've been high on in Barrett Collins, who's going to be this year's Puka Nakua as far as kind of that steal that was going to step up. He performed well, but overall, it was not a good afternoon. Noteboom and Curry, they had the 2 worst pass blocking grades in the NFL, a 1.9 blocking grade for Curry, and he allowed 7 pressures and just 33 blocking snaps. So not a good showing for that offensive line outside of Dotson and Jonah Jackson, and Bo Limmer had some moments as well.
Yeah, it was about what you would expect, I think, when you're talking about a line that was reconstructed on the fly at the last minute because of injuries all over the place. There were so many 2022 vibes coming off of that line early in that game. And I know the metrics that you're talking about, D-Mac, and I respect them and I get them, and it was not good. It was not good. I'm not trying to, whitewash that at all. It was a poor performance by the offensive line. They still should have won the game. So I'm kind of looking at it like that as bad as it was, they still had a real chance to win the game. A.J. Curry may or may not play moving forward. We'll see. He's not the guy to hold down that spot while you're waiting for Joe Noteboom to come back, or more importantly, for Alaric Jackson to come back. It makes you, miss Jackson even more than you did knowing that he was going to be out for a while. At least worst case scenario, that he's coming back in Week 3 against the San Francisco 49ers. So there's some good news there. But if this was a line that had Jackson, Avila, Dotson, and Havenstein, and those numbers showed up, it would be like, uh-oh, look out, there's a problem. That's not who it was. It was Curry and Jackson, who went back and forth between 2 positions, like a ping pong ball. You got another third stringer in Limmer. You've got Dotson, who played fine. He's your guy. And then you had McClendon out at the right tackle, who's a backup to your number 1 guy. So it's disappointing that they played badly because this is the NFL. No one cares that you're hurt. No one's going to take it easy on you because you're hurt. They like it that you're hurt, and they're going to go attack the spots that you're hurting in. But this is not their line. This may be a very rocky 4 or 5 game run until you get all of these guys back and healthy and ready to go. But the good news is, I think that we saw it last year, that you can get off to a relatively slow start, maybe stub your toe through the first month or so of the season and still end up in the place that you want. And I think that's kind of where Rams fans' heads need to go, that this may be a bumpy entry into the 2024 season.
I agree. I mean, when you point out the fact that this isn't their offensive line, it was a makeshift offensive line due to injuries. And I definitely think there was a lot of overreactions as far as what this meant, as far as, is the season shot because of the status of the offensive line? No, it's not, because you are getting Alaric Jackson back in week 3. So the big key, just survive the Arizona Cardinals. And will Art Curry be at left tackle? That remains to be seen. I mean, McClendon did have some consistent reps during training camp at left tackle, and he performed well. He played left tackle during college at Georgia. So the big key is, can you get Rob Havenstein back? Because if you get Rob Havenstein back, then you got a really good opportunity to solidify this offensive line at the right tackle spot. Kevin Dotson, yes, he did leave with the boot, but he performed well. Jonah Jackson performed well. And Bo Limmer, he allowed just 2 pressures. I think the big key in all this is, can Bo Limmer handle that center spot with Steve Avila out? And Steve Avila, he got banged up. He hurt his knee, but he did not look that great out there. I mean, he was getting beat off the snap a little bit. Wasn't loving what I saw on tape on the rewatch for Steve Avila. So the big key is Bo Limmer at center, figuring things out. Then you got Jackson and Kevin Dotson. They're 2 guys that they could perform well. Havenstein, and then you just have to live through the left tackle spot for just 1 week, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, if going from right to left, and we'll come back to Avila in a second, but you had a second stringer, a starter, a third stringer, a first stringer, and I don't even know what to call our Curry. I don't even know if you would call him a third stringer, right? He's probably the last offensive lineman in your group, and you hope that you don't have to get to the point where he's going to play important snaps, and he did. So it was certainly not the varsity that was out there up front. The Avila thing that you're talking about, D-Mac, and I think you're right, he did not look good. It was not, even before he left the game, it was like, that does not look like the player that we saw a year ago. Who knows when he hurt that knee? Who knows when he actually said, okay, I got a problem. He didn't miss a snap last year. He is a tough man. He is a good football player. And I can't help but wonder if maybe he wasn't hurt way before he decided to go to somebody and say, hey, look, I got a problem. I'm just speculating here. I don't know for sure, but that looked like he's too good of a player to have looked like that if there weren't underlying circumstances. So I will give him the benefit of the doubt there and hope that he heals really quickly and comes back and looks like the player we saw last year.
Yeah, McVay did say that he is expected to miss 4 to 6 weeks. And to your point, he also said that he, quote, had to yank him out of there because he was playing through that injury, and that it was a credit to how much he wants to be out there. So, yeah, I mean, definitely he needs his reps too at the NFL level at that position. So it was going to be a process either way. But overall, I mean, I just kind of have to give this offensive line a D-. I mean, they really did not perform well in this one. I mean, even McClendon, I mean, he allowed 5 pressures at a PFF grade at 33. So, yeah, I mean, they have a lot to improve upon, and a lot of that's going to do with personnel. So we'll see. And honestly, a tough defensive line to deal with. So, coming up next, though,
point. That's a really good. This was not a team that doesn't get after the quarterback. This is a team that has one of the best pass rushers in all of football, in Aiden Hutchinson. And Aiden Hutchinson against 2 backup tackles, and one of the backup tackles is a 3rd or 4th or even 5th stringer, depending on how you want to look at it. Of course he was going to go off. Of course he was going to get pressure, and that they still had a chance to win the game despite all of that. I get it. It's pro sports. It's the NFL. No moral victories. I understand all that. There's some stuff to feel actually pretty good about what you saw. If that line, go back to 2022, when they finally settled it down and got the same guys in the same spots for a couple of weeks, even though it was Baker Mayfield, even though there was a bunch of backups playing, they still able to function. Just give Sean McVay a little bit of consistency, and I think they'll find a way to move the ball and score points.
Absolutely. I mean, a 47.8% pass rush win rate. Hutchinson was getting anything he wanted. I feel bad, too. Throwing an F. Come on, man. That's messed up. A D-. I'll grade to a D. I'll grade to a D, okay?
Sometimes you get an F. I mean, it's just sometimes you get one.
Jonah Jackson, he blocked well. I mean, Bo Limmer did some things. Dotson was, for the most part, his usual self. I mean, I'm just out here in the morning, early morning showtime, just throwing out D-. Like it's like AP chemistry or something like that. But
hey, what are you gonna do?
But we're going to talk quarterback next. Matthew Stafford, a surprisingly low PFF grade. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
All right, let's talk about FanDuel here for a second. You've heard us talk about it for a long time here on Locked On. For no other reason, they're America's #1 sportsbook. This is a little different for you, right? A lot of times we talk about the money line or the spread or some player props that we like on FanDuel, maybe some long-term plays, some over, some unders. All that's available on FanDuel, always going to be there for you on FanDuel. But this time, something a little bit different, because right now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and you'll get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. You heard me right? 3-week free trial on NFL Sunday Ticket with YouTube and YouTube TV when you bet $5. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out of market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment. And of course, you can cancel anytime that you would like. All you have to do, FanDuel.com, to download America's #1 sportsbook. What are you waiting for? Free Sunday Ticket.
And we are off and running here on Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Also, a special shout out to those everyday listeners out there watching and listening to every single episode of Locked On Rams. And you can join that everyday listeners club too. Just watch or listen to a Locked On Rams episode 5 days a week, and then you won't miss a thing about your Los Angeles Rams. All right, Travis, we're going to pick it up in the second segment, talking some QB, talking some Matty Stafford. And Stafford goes 34 for 49, 317 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception before the half that cost them at least 3 points potentially. And I thought he played well when you consider that you had to go to more of a shorter passing game with the offensive line and the pressure up front. Was sacked 2 times, but the pressure was coming all night. He was having to make some no-look throws, some wizard throws, throwing to open spots and windows. And I thought for the most part, a little surprised by that PFF grade of 51.8. He got no big-time throws and had 3 turnover-worthy throws. So not the best Matthew Stafford game as far as overall, but when you consider the circumstances, I think you saw the warrior in him, and, hey, the arm talent was still evident.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to argue with the methodology that the guys at the Pro Football Focus go through, but the big-time throw to Cooper Kupp where he toe-tagged, if that's not a big-time throw, I don't know what is, but we'll put that aside for a second. He did not play his best game, and I don't think it would be possible to play your best game under the circumstances that he was dealing with. That they had an offensive line, like we just talked about a second ago, that was not up to snuff. He had virtually no time. You had to take whatever Sean McVay's game plan is coming in, probably got reduced by about 60 or more percent. Just you don't have time to run some things knowing that Aiden Hutchinson is coming and he's got bad intentions. You just can't run your full complement of plays knowing that your quarterback's not going to have a lot of time. That Matthew Stafford only got sacked twice is a miracle. And I think that it's a testament to his intelligence as a player, his experience, knowing how to protect himself a little bit, knowing where the opportunities are, perhaps more importantly, knowing where the opportunities are not, where to stay away from the danger. I thought he did a relatively good job. You mentioned it a second ago. The interception in the end zone was a killer. It was an absolute killer that you're inside the high red area, as Sean McVay likes to say, and you leave with nothing. As disappointing as it was, 1st and goal from the 1, at least they got 3 in that particular drive. But to get into that part of the field and leave with nothing is a big disappointment. The Rams quarterback is not their problem. Like you said, the arm talent is still there. The decision-making is still there. The competitiveness is still there. If you kind of go back and watch that, you watch Matthew Stafford chirping at some of those Lions guys. He's got a fire in his belly that he always has. So I'm very optimistic, very bullish on him. The only concern with Matthew Stafford, as always, is whether or not he can stay healthy enough, and that offensive line makes that question more relevant than ever before.
Yeah, I think with Stafford's the thing where it's like, okay, he's not going to be at 100% as far as when the game begins and him getting nicked up. I mean, he has ankle taped pretty heavily, but it's how close to 100% do you keep him? Because we know that 80, 90% of Matthew Stafford is better than 90% of quarterbacks in the NFL. And yes, there were a couple almost interceptions. There were a couple of out routes that could have turned into pick six. So I think he'll sharpen some things up. And the good thing was it wasn't the gunslinger Stafford that was trying to do everything by himself and try and really put them in a bad position. Of course, like I said, I pointed out the interception that definitely proved costly. But like you said in the first segment, they still ultimately had a chance to win this game, and you get a go-ahead touchdown with Cooper Kupp late in this one. So he did his job, and I'll say it again. Bears repeating what I said in the first show. How does a guy, a generational talent, not get the ball in overtime? He didn't get to touch the pigskin. That would have been theater to see him in Detroit with some opportunity to do something there. But overall, I still give him a B, really, when you think of the overall performance. I mean, because the standard that he has, we know what an A Stafford performance look like. Yeah. And I'm looking at you, Super Bowl 56. But, I mean, I think a B is solid for him. Now, as far as wide receivers go, I got to give this group an A-. I mean, this group, Puka Nacua, by the way, I mean, he goes down. He still had 4 catches for 35 yards. Yeah. And the Cooper Kupp alone, I mean, on the field, I know fantasy managers that took a risk on him are happy and smiling this week, had 14 catches for 110 yards, had that go-ahead touchdown in the fourth quarter. Tyler Johnson, 79 yards on 5 catches. He had that 63-yarder that was mostly yards after catch. Demarcus Robinson made some plays. So, hey, look, I mean, Jordan Whittington could have had a touchdown if it weren't for A.J.R. Curry's hold there. So I definitely was impressed by the wide receiver group. Yeah.
Excuse me, going back to Stafford for just a second, I think your grade is about right. You can't throw a pick in the end zone and get an A. That just doesn't work. There's no opportunity there. Wide receiver group is great. You know, Cooper Kupp's he's that kid in class that totally blows up the curve, right? That he's gonna be on the right side of that. He was so good. That was vintage Kupp. It wasn't just that he made a couple of really impressive catches. It wasn't just that he was super tough. It wasn't just that, you know, he did all the things he did, over 100 yards, over 10 catches, I think 24 targets, a career high for him. It's everybody in the building knew where the ball was going and they still couldn't stop it. That to me is always the great litmus test of somebody that is operating in a level that is just impossible or very, very difficult to get to. Everybody knows what you're going to do and you do it anyway. You know, when you get to that level, that's when you know that you're just firing on all cylinders. I thought Kupp was absolutely fantastic. And like you mentioned, all the other guys, they stepped up. You know, they really stepped up in the absence of Puka. They're going to have to continue to do it. But unlike the offensive line, I think that there are a lot of good options in that wide receiver room that are going to be able to fill. Nobody's going to replace Puka. Puka's too good of a player, but it'll be close enough that I don't think that's going to be a huge problem for them moving forward, like the way the line might be.
I totally agree. And then that really is the big takeaway from the Puka injury, is that if this was last year's Kupp towards the end of the season and Puka gets injured, then you might have a problem. But if you get this version of a Cooper Kupp with Puka out, you can certainly make up for that. And this receiver group is going to do just fine. And 21 targets, that's the only thing I'm a little concerned about. I mean, at this stage of his career, is that too many? Also had 2 rush attempts for 10 yards, but I'm going to...
And all the motion too, D-Mac. He was in motion.
Yeah,
30%.
Absolutely.
It's something they ran something like 5 miles in the game and some like 600 yards and just motion.
400 yards pre-snap.
Yeah, it was a lot. But look, here's the thing. What else are you going to do? This is how they get him loose.
If he's healthy, you got to play him.
They're going to have to lean on him, and they don't have a lot of other options at this point, and you don't want to burn the rubber off of his tires before Puka gets back. But the fact of the matter is that however much action he got, and it was a ton on Sunday night, buckle up because he's going to get it again moving forward.
No doubt about it. By the way, I had some people in the comments asking me, why don't I just marry Cooper Kupp? And they were saying that I was glazing him. Are you familiar with this term? They're saying D-Max glazing Cooper Kupp too hard. So, maybe I'll just ease up on the Cooper Kupp praise. But, I mean, what do you think about that? I mean, you up on this glazing word?
Unfortunately, I am. I don't care for it. It's not my favorite word. I have been accused of the same thing when it comes to a certain Japanese designated hitter on the Dodgers, that I have been accused of glazing Mr. Ohtani. But I'm familiar and I don't like it. But Look, you got to earn the glazing. You just don't get it for no good reason. So
don't worry, I always get D-Mac loves Ohtani more than he loves his wife. I get that in the comments all the time. So totally understand. But we're going to continue to break down this Rams team. We're going to throw out some more grades. We're going to shift over to the defensive side. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
Passion, drive, and patience. That's the formula for winning championships. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. They've got superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and a whole lot more. So whether you are into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you will always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge, huge wins. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers.
And welcome back to Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday. Free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Locked On Rams, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, Travis, we're going to pick it up. We're going to actually stay with the tight ends. Stay on the offensive side for a second here. Talk about Colby Parkinson's debut. I definitely was impressed. He caught 4 passes for 47 yards, had that 120-yarder where he caught it right there in the flat. He made it into a nice bigger gain, got some yards after the catch. And Davis Allen, he had a drop. Hunter Long was playing. After that drop, we didn't see much Davis Allen. But overall, the tight end group, I'm going to give a B-.
Yeah, you got to catch the ball. That's a quick way to lose the confidence of the coach. It's a quick way to lose the confidence of your quarterback. And like if you're Travis Kelce or Tony Gonzalez or something like that, maybe you can drop one here or there and they're going to come back to you. But if you're just getting started, that's a tough way to do it. I thought Parkinson was really good. I'd like to see more of it. I think we might see more of it because of what we talked about previously with Puka Nacua. He's a big dude. Like I would like to see him used a little bit more down in the red zone area, certainly in some goal line situations. That big 6'7" body. There's not a lot of guys that are going to be able to get up in the air and deal with him like that. I'd like to see him used in that role, but all in all, first game without Tyler Higbee in a really long time, and I thought it looked pretty good, and Parkinson was the reason why.
No doubt about it. He's another guy that can absolutely help with Puka Nacua out for the next 4 games.
It'll be a little bit of a challenge too, D-Mac, because they're going to have to use him as an offensive lineman too. Like, it's just the fact of the matter is, because your O-line situation is what it is, you're going to need that sixth guy to make sure that Stafford stays upright and in one piece. So maybe sometimes it'll be the tight end. Maybe sometimes you leave the back end to chip somebody coming off that edge. But, it's kind of a double-edged sword. You'd like to throw him the ball more, but you also need him in protection.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're not going to block, you're not going to stay on the field. You kind of have to earn the reps as far as getting in the pass game too and the targets there. But also, that was interesting. We saw Hunter Long a couple times there in the second half as well after that Davis Allen drop. Now, as far as the running back position, a lot of Rams fans freaking out because Blake Corum did not play in this one. I thought there was a pretty good chance we were going to see him in the second half, but of course we know that the offensive line was decimated and the plans changed after that. Kyron Williams, he had 50 yards on 18 carries. Ronnie Rivers, 16 yards on 2 carries. And look, the truth of the matter is, you did go to that shorter West Coast style of passing game after the offensive line suffered those injuries. So you didn't see as much on the running game.
No, the Corum thing's really interesting. Everybody that I've talked to, everything that I expected, everything that I had heard about Blake Corum was that he was going to be a big part of what they did on Sunday night. He didn't get a carry. He didn't get a snap as an offensive player. It was a surprise. There are obviously extenuating circumstances that would explain some of it, but none of it, I think, is a little surprising, which makes you wonder, all right, why? Why was he not a part of what it is that they do? And the only thing that I can come up with is the pass protection that he provides may not be exactly what Stafford and McVay needed in that situation, that even a slight misunderstanding of it or a slight, failure to grasp the highest level concepts might result in something very, very bad. And in that situation, they just decided to stay away from it. I'm curious how he's going to look against Arizona, whether we'll get to see him. I think that we probably will. But Kyren Williams was Kyren Williams. Kyren Williams is a good player, and he looked like a good player. And they used him about the way that I expect them to use him moving forward. I just think you got to supplement him with a couple more guys. That it was Rivers instead of Corum was at least a small surprise to me.
Yeah, I think it's a couple of things. I think, one, not a soft landing going up against Detroit. Detroit was second in the National Football League last year when it comes to run defense. And then you go into Michigan, of course, we know his connection with Michigan. I mean, maybe he's going to go in there and try to do too much or something like that. But I think it also just came down to just the play calling that they were forced into because of the injuries. And also, too, you can take this away. Hey, if you had any doubts whether or not this was Kyren Williams' backfield, well, now you know. This is Kyren Williams' backfield, and that's solidified after seeing this. But I think you'd also make the claim as well that you should have towed the rock a little more just in general, whether it be Kyren Williams or Blake Corum getting this opportunity there in the first half when the offensive line was as close to full strength as they were. But look, it's only a matter of time. They are going to give Blake Corum those opportunities. And look, it's week 1 on the road in Detroit against an elite run-stopping defense. So I'm not overly concerned about it. But, hey, you know me, I love some rookie debuts, man. I love some rookie debuts. I wanted to see it. That would have been a great storyline too, right? Michigan man going in there and breaking Detroit's heart. I mean, imagine if he lowered his shoulder and trucked Aiden Hutchinson or something like that. A little Michigan on Michigan crime. That's what I was hoping for.
Yeah, I mean, I would have liked that, but I think what Sean McVay was afraid of is that Aiden Hutchinson runs over Blake Corum and kills Matthew Stafford, and that's the Michigan on Michigan crime that you might have seen. So he'll get in there. It'll happen. It's a long season. Kyren Williams is, like you said, clearly their number one guy. Would you like to see him used a little more, like you suggested? Yeah, but I've seen Sean McVay coach this team for a long time. I don't think he's going to turn into Woody Hayes in 3 yards in a cloud of dust.
You know what probably happened, Travis? Sean McVay, I totally agree. That's not going to happen. I'm going to see 3 yards in a cloud of dust, whatever they used to say about it. But you know what happened? Probably LaFleur McVay probably saw that Connor Stallions documentary on Netflix, and they probably said, "Oh, we don't have Connor Stallions. Blake Corum is probably worthless at this point. We don't need this guy. He can't play." So maybe they're trying to hire Connor Stallions or something like that.
Who knows?
I kid. Blake Corum. Trying to get you on the show at some point. But that's what we do for this episode of Locked On Rams. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMAC_LA. And you can follow the People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers, at Travis Rogers. Until next time, whose house? It's Locked On Rams house.